Hey everybody, my name is Sir Crest, and I wanted to give my thoughts on the Battlefront Beta for PC at least. So over the last few days I've put in maybe 6 hours into it, and from what I've played, I've, for the most part, enjoyed myself. I won't say the game is great, but I still had fun, which I think is an important thing to mention. And certainly there was a bit of novelty to it. This was the first Star Wars game that I've played in a very long time. Certainly the first, Battlefront game I've played in a long time. And I actually wasn't a fan of the first two, or the previous Battlefront games. I found them, frankly, to not actually be all that fun. The actual infantry combat I thought was actually quite bad, and really clunky controls. And so I was excited to see what a modern Battlefront could be, especially from a developer like DICE, who make really good first-person games. I consider Mirror's Edge to be a really good first-person game. So, there's a couple things that I really wanted to talk about. So one was gun mechanics, or gun feel. So, like, it's a shooter, so the guns should feel good. Then there's just overall infantry combat with the cards, vehicle combat, graphics and audio, and overall balance and stability and stuff like that. So, first of all, the guns in Battlefront feel good, or rather, they feel pretty much as good as energy weapons could be, I feel like. They feel extremely authentic to the films, which I think is a very important point to make. They feel weak to me, but I'm used to Battlefield games and Call of Duty games, which have much more mechanical sort of sensation to them. That's what we as people living in the real world are kind of used to. We're not used to, energy weapons. We're used to guns that have cartridges and bullets and, pow or stuff. So I feel like for energy weapons, they're about as good as they could be, but importantly, they feel like they came from the movies, which I think is again, very important to say. So with that said, if this was a game that had kind of the overall or the meta game of Battlefield, it wouldn't be nearly as fun. Because I think that satisfaction from actually, shooting and taking down an enemy isn't quite there. At least not as much as in a Battlefield game. But that's kind of where it's different than a Battlefield game. It's much more arcadey, it's much more casual, which isn't a bad thing. Because even though I didn't find myself shooting and fighting for the fun of it, I just liked being involved in the battle. And when you have the grand scale of these Battlefront games, especially the Hoth mission, which feels, again, really authentic, that itself is the fun. I compared to like a Battlefield game, with that, I am my own person. I feel like I'm taking my own chunk of the battle for myself, and I'm making my own difference in my own little world, but I don't feel like I'm connected to the entire game, because very often I can just blame someone else for screwing up the entire game, or why they're hogging the tank and sitting back in the enemy lines or whatever. But that's kind of what I mean. Like, even though there's this huge map, it may be bigger than Battlefront, and there's this huge battle going on, you don't feel like you're really connected to it. And it's almost the exact opposite in my experience for this Battlefront Beta, in that I feel like I'm less in my own little thing, because it's so easy to take down enemies in this game. The time to kill is actually really short in my experience, especially for a game like this. And because there isn't much one-on-one type fighting, it's all just like a numbers game. You have all these players coming together and fighting, and it's just this huge, overwhelming mass of lasers and blasters and explosions and fighting and stuff. So you feel like you're just part of this homogenous battle, instead of you being one person actually trying to make a difference in some way. I don't know if that kind of makes any sense, but that's from my experience when I played. And that's really where the enjoyment is being a part of that front of the battle, if you will. Actual gun mechanics don't feel all that satisfying, but it's tied to the infantry combat in general is fun, or it's engaging, just not in terms of the guns themselves. So you know, you have the jetpack, you have thermal detonators, you have the fantastically satisfying thermal imploders, which look like some sort of singularity that pulls everything in and just explodes, and it's really, really fun. It sounds fantastic. The sound in the game is incredible. And so those kind of unlocks and getting the heroes are really, really fun. I think the heroes are fun, but don't feel all that satisfying to use because you're just kind of like walking, and because you kind of one-hit kill anything, you feel like you're limited by your movement speed. You can't get to the enemy fast enough because they're able to just run away, rocket away. And, you know, there's all this possibility of racking up all these kills, but you can't really do it. And so heroes for me aren't super satisfying in that respect, because I feel like, come on, I need to get to the enemy, get to the enemy, get to the enemy, and it doesn't really happen. The kind of the overall point I'm trying to make is, I like the feeling of Battlefront, but it's not a satisfying shooter, is kind of what I'm trying to get at. And my first impression when I tweeted about it was, strip out Star Wars, strip out the visuals and the audio, the things that make it feel like Star Wars, and it's one hell of a boring game. And I think that pretty much holds true. And it's really the vehicles, in my experience from what I played, that really make it feel like Star Wars. You really make it feel epic and feel like it's part of the movies. You know, the AT-AT walking, and even though it's on rails, actually walking and you seeing the trail it has in the snow, like miles and miles back, and the actual sounds of those huge heavy blasters, you know, firing into enemy lines. And the fact that you control those weapons is really, really amazing and really satisfying to play. And DICE did a really good job on the vehicles. Everything feels really authentic. And I would say that the most satisfying part of the vehicles is the ones that are on the ground. The AT-ST can absolutely wreck if you know where you are kind of in the realm, and make sure that you're either inside of your neighboring enemies, or neighboring allies, so that they're keeping enemies from just taking pot shots at you, because the AT-ST can go down with small arms fire, or just blasters. And that's really fun to use because it sounds very authentic. The sounds, you know, each step takes sounds exactly like the movie. And so all that stuff, the vehicles sound and feel really fun to play. I don't know if the balance and the actual feeling of them is fun overall, like how long that's going to last. But a lot of what I was playing seemed to feel fun past the point of the novelty wearing off. Like, I felt like I was actually playing because it was fun, not just because, ooh, Star Wars, which I think is a lot of what people are playing it for. But then it comes to air vehicles, and this is like, I keep jumping into these things thinking, this time is going to be different. This time I'm going to have fun. And I don't. The map is actually quite large. I don't know how large the actual playable area is, but as far as air vehicles go, you have a lot of area to work with. Unfortunately, due to the way it works for some reason, is that it feels like you're so much on rails. So when you pick up the token, because all the vehicles are token based, and that was something that I wasn't too sure about, but it kind of works out. So when you pick up a token, you do the animation to actually like teleport into the vehicle, and you're on rails for like what seems like half an hour. Yeah, these interceptors are really agile.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Oh my god. I was going up in the air and I did my 180 move, and then it sent me straight into the ground automatically.
Nice.
It was amazing. And in my experience, you either have to have your sensitivity so high so that you can not use those special moves in order to turn around your own, and not be able to hit anything, or be able to hit something and have to have a mouse pad the size of a billboard or something. Air vehicles are incredibly unsatisfying for me. Whereas ground vehicles like AT-STs and AT-ATs and all that are very, very fun to use. Graphically, it's no surprise it's a DICE game. It looks absolutely incredible. Same with the sound. The music and the sound effects and all the sounds inside of the hangar and the reverb and all those sounds are incredibly authentic feeling. You feel like you're in the movie. Really, my only complaint with sound is that the voice acting, it sounds like it's from a fan mod or, some sort of tribute video But yeah, graphically, I'm running at 2560 by 1440 on Ultra with a 980 Ti, and I'm hitting between 90 and 140 frames per second in the 40-person multiplayer. Runs absolutely great, and it looks beautiful. The amount of detail in the world is fantastic. You see the snow on the ground, all the footprints. Your character leaves footprints. You have a first-person shadow. You see, like, I don't know if I mentioned it, but you see the trail that the AT-AT is leaving, like miles behind. And all that stuff feels incredibly authentic when you're playing. The texture detail and the art assets are, well, I could say out of this world, but then that would be a terrible pun. So I think that's overall kind of what I was overall thinking when playing. There's probably other things in my mind that I wasn't able to get out when speaking. But when the game comes out, will I be paying money to play it? The answer is no, because those arcade games aren't really the games that I play. We will definitely have to find out and see what kind of variety they can add in with the cards, those perk systems, the weapons, how different they can make them, or how many they're going to be, because it doesn't look like there's a huge list and only 4 are highlighted or the rest are grayed out. You just have 4 that you just see globally. So I don't know really how much there is going to be. I would be very interested to see how much variety they can pack into that. As far as like the beta is concerned, this was something I've been telling people before, is like, this is the best beta an EA game has ever had, in my opinion. Battlefield 4's beta was a train wreck. Battlefield 3's beta was a train wreck. Battlefield Hardline was a train wreck. And I was trying to remember if there was another EA beta that I tried out. But all the time, those games, you're constantly disconnecting. The game sometimes doesn't even start. You can't finish a mission. None of your stuff is saving. The game has so many graphical glitches. Battlefront only crashed twice, and that was because I accepted a friend request. I have never crashed outside of that. The game never disconnected me from a game. I've never had any graphical glitches. I've never not been able to start it or anything like that. One of the most stable betas I've ever experienced. And if the full game launch was as smooth as this beta, in my experience, I would be completely happy with that. Which is kind of surprising, because you don't expect a beta to be very stable. Could be because it's very close to being launched. And if that's the case, then I think that is kind of promising for how stable the launch game may be. But anyways, that's just kind of what I was thinking when I was playing. Very, very casual arcade game, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just depends how much variety and how much interesting content they can add in that will make people come back to playing the same maps over and over again. So that's kind of what I was thinking. If I happen to have no reason to spend like $100 on something, which is very rare, and I happen to buy the game, then maybe I'll do kind of a follow-up first impressions of what the launch game is like. I doubt it. But anyways, that's my thoughts on the beta, and I will talk to you guys later.